It's different than last week.
It's a different feel, different vibe. I kind of like it. It's kind of more.
Nice, Gabe.
More. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, this is definitely more me. Definitely
This
more
is
me.
more Gabe.
Vibing with this
I
one.
like it. I like it.
Yeah. What do we got?
We got the second episode of the meeting.
We made it
After
to
the
the second
meeting.
episode.
Here we are.
Here we are.
Let's start out by introducing ourselves. I'm John,
I'm Chris.
and this is the meeting after the meeting.
Meeting.
Let's not forget about Gabe on the I don't even know what's that thing called?
On the board.
On the board.
He's on the board.
Producer's fine.
Producer.
Just go with producer.
Gabe, how's it going?
Pretty good, man. Pretty
How was
good.
your week?
Yeah, it was, you don't care.
We don't.
No,
You don't care.
but we have to ask.
Yeah, of course. At least to be polite.
Yeah. Did you play that new Harry Potter game like you talked about?
Yeah, I did.
I heard some good things.
People were clowning me because I got chosen to be Gryffindor, but you know.
You know what?
Be,
I'd be a little
different.
jelly. I'd be a little jelly because I did a test one time and was a Hufflepuff. So, not as cool. Not as cool as a Gryffindor, I don't think.
I feel like if you're playing a Harry Potter video game, just in general, it's not cool.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't think it
don't play
matters
too
what
cool.
character you are.
Yeah, that's for sure.
I mean, I'm just going to put that out there. You know, maybe I'm out of touch. I don't know. I am old.
well, hey, let's. So it's the second episode. We are a weekly Zoom meeting and a podcast. This audio will be, to remind everybody, will be put into a podcast form. We're going to probably get about 3-4 episodes in before we start publishing.
Yeah.
The podcast. Mm-hmm. We just to remind everybody, we have a guest who's going to be joining us here in a minute. We're really excited to have her out here.
Totally, man.
Good friend of ours,
Legend
in the area here and also in AA around here. Good friend of ours.
We go way back.
We do go way back. You and her,
We go way back.
way back. So good to have her. And then we're gonna get into hearing a little bit about her story, and then we're gonna talk about we're gonna do a topic. We've got Kate. We've got a newcomer tip of the week, and then we've got a sketch we're going to do at the end. We'll leave that as a surprise. So,
All right.
but with that, why don't we bring in our guest here, all the way from Kensington, MD? We got Stephanie T. Stephanie, why don't you come and join us?
Come on in.
Studio audience is loving it. Studio audience is loving it.
loves it.
Loving
The clap
Steph.
track. The
Just
clap
gonna
track.
Get her headset on here.
What happened to the clap track? It just like died.
It's
Yeah,
a little.
it ran its course.
It ran its course. It was short-lived.
Stephanie, welcome.
Thank
Welcome.
you.
How's it going?
It's going really well.
Yeah. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy week to come and join us.
It's my pleasure to be here with you two quasi-legends.
Stop. Stop.
Legend. Yeah.
K-Town legend.
Yeah.
We don't have time to go over how Chris is a
Something in the water around
It
here.
is definitely something in the
Running
water.
through those lead pipes.
There really
Drinking
is.
all that creek water.
Yeah. There's a lot of you from this town
It's true.
that really have made an impact in the world, you know? One way or the other.
One way or the other.
Yeah. For better or for worse. I mean, we're here.
Yeah.
Well,
Grateful to be here. This is super cool. For those of you that, can everyone like see this?
people who are on Zoom can see if there are people on Zoom.
these two guys have put a lot into this to bring something fun, you know, to what can be. Sometimes it can get kind of, for lack of a better word, boring.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
after a minute, and this is super fun.
Yeah.
I feel.
We hope so.
I would
good.
agree. I would agree. And makes it a lot more fun. We have people like you on who have great experience, who have awesome drinking stories and sobriety stories. So
Yes.
I think
I hope so.
we're gonna have some fun. So we'll why don't we kick it off with what we like to call the stats. Your stats.
stats.
Maybe just tell
Quick
us your
stats.
All right.
sobriety date, home group.
Stat
You have a
number
sponsor, all
one.
that.
I'm Stephanie. I'm an alcoholic.
Steph.
Stef.
Hi. Stat number two. My sobriety date is July 8th, 2011. Stat number three. I have a sponsor named Valerie who is a rock star. That's officially true. And stat number four. I have a home group called, maybe you've heard of it, Haven at Last.
I am familiar.
Those are my stats.
That's awesome.
I'm glad to have those stats.
Yeah. Stats are important for us.
They
If you
absolutely
don't
are.
want new ones, they're,
Yeah.
Exactly.
they should be
Which I've
important.
had. I've changed my stats up a little bit.
Yeah.
A lot of bit.
Yeah. Yes. Those weren't always your stats.
Nope.
Yeah. Well, I relate to that too.
Yeah, does everyone know your nickname?
No.
I know you like to talk about it. Just give
You
them
don't.
a quick, just real quick.
My nickname is 24-hour John
Why and why is that?
because I picked up a lot of 24-hour chips. So some people in AA
A lot of stats.
hand out a lot of stat. I've had a lot. My stats have changed a lot, and I picked up a lot of white chips or 24-hour chips, and they decided to start calling me 24-hour John. So it was very humbling for many years to, have some years sober and have a new guy come up to you and be like, "Hey, 24-hour John," and I just want to be, "I'm sober longer than you."
They just shortened it to 24.
Yeah. And people
So,
still call you that.
They
A lot of
twofer.
people.
What do you've like shortened it even more than that? At
Me?
some points, yeah. I feel like you've. I don't even know.
I just call you Johnny.
Johnny. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you had any good nicknames in sobriety, or has it always just been Steph?
I've had Steph with an F.
Steph with an F.
I've had Temps. Hey, yo,
Temp.
Temps.
Temp.
Compliment of Eric Cooper. Hey, yo, Temps. I've had, that's it.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. There's some rough nicknames going around in AA. Somehow I've avoided all of them.
My mom calls our puppy Pretty Boy.
Really?
And it just isn't the same as it used to be when I had a dog as a kid that she called Pretty Boy, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a little different now. Oh man. Well, let's because we are under a time constraint here, let's get into the next portion, where we'll get to know you a little bit more and talk about the 3 W's. 3 dubs.
The 3 doves.
We don't have a sound for that yet.
We don't
We'll
know.
work on that. The 3 W's. So, Stephanie, you're going to share with us a little bit about what you were like, what happened, and what you're like now. Let's plan on adding like 7. Yeah, you can do the math on that. So we're going to add some time there. So
I got this. We'll be
That's a
fine.
lot to ask.
It's going to be fine.
it's going to be fine.
Simple math is hard for me, but
So yeah, just tell us, maybe some highlights on.
yes. Okay, so the 3 W's, the first of the 3 W's is, it says here, what were you like? So, like they said, I grew up in Kensington, like Chris, the co-host, and we ran in a lot of the same circles. As a matter of fact, we're similar age. I am and will always be a little older.
You won't let me forget it.
Nope. But, and I just think when I think about growing up and just in the interest of the 5 minutes allotted for this W, I will just say that I was extremely chaotic, My life was chaotic, destructive, violent, I was a liar from a really young age. There was a lot of crying in my house, screaming, yelling, threats, just very consumed with how I felt, just always. So that really drove my life, and it caused a lot of destruction in my house, among my friends. And, I didn't know, like we do now, that it was massive self-centeredness, that how I felt drove everything, and that I would do anything, to get freedom from any kind of pain that I felt, you know? So once I started drinking, the freedom that came over me, and I had no idea that that's what it was producing. I would have never said I feel free, you know? I just thought it was super fun, and I was a wild partier just right from the beginning. The first time I went to a party, I was carried out of the woods. I remember my Guess jeans mini skirt. I remember what I was wearing. I always remember what I was wearing. And
Not a good sign, but
not a good sign. It was the 80s. I'm not ashamed of my age anymore. I got over it, which I'm really happy about. I'm embracing it.
dude, the late 80s were fucking
They
amazing.
were. And the clothes were amazing.
Yeah.
So it was very, very chaotic. Once I started drinking, it was even more chaotic. And I started high school in all AP
And you started drinking in
classes.
Tilden. I mean,
Yeah, I started drinking in
7th, 8th grade.
I started really drinking the summer before 9th grade. I had some drinks, but the end of 8th grade, like commencement party, was the kickoff really of drinking for me. That was the first time I got raging drunk at a party, and that would be the beginning of, you know, every weekend thereafter until I got sober for the first time. And at 31, I never missed a weekend.
That's what I'm talking about right
So,
there.
I mean, that's it. What was I like? I was just a super self-centered, very destructive, violent maniac, I would say. I got in a lot of fights, and I also had a lot of good times. I was, our
So you
literature says,
you have a lot of fun.
oh my God,
in
so
the
much
beginning?
fun. So much fun. And I can still think about those times in higher regard. And I'm glad that my entire history of life is not just a sad, drunken,
Yeah.
you know, so many good times.
You had to have some fun. I mean, why,
Oh my
otherwise,
God.
why would you do it?
Exactly right. And
for as
that's
long
what I
as you did it.
chased. And I never said, like, did you guys say, hey, let's go drinking? I never even used those words. I just said, let's party.
Yeah,
Are you
let's
guys
party.
partying?
Yeah, let's
Like,
party.
let's do it.
And I felt sorry for people that didn't,
Oh, yeah.
you know, like super
Losers.
sad.
Yeah.
Like you're missing out on the best part of life. This
Yeah.
is the magic, you know? Mm-hmm. So
I would try to convince people to do it, like to live like me. Like, what do you like? You got to do this. I'm telling you. And they would
Oh, yeah.
say weird things like, I don't know. My mom really wants me home by midnight, or like, and I would just be like, what does that matter? It's like
Absolutely.
you know,
when I got older and I started to have friends that were married, I was the friend that you would go out with and
yes.
almost cheat on your husband or do coke for the first time, or, you know, and then everyone would wake up in the morning and be mad at me because it was my fault, you know? I could really
Like you were
convince
holding a gun
people.
to their head.
Yeah,
Do this line.
exactly right. But
Come on.
I would do anything. I would do anything to have fun. That's what I felt like I was doing for many, many years, all through my 20s. You know? But at the end of my 20s is when it started to get questionable and sketchy in my mind. But up to that point, from
It was probably sketchy before that.
absolutely, absolutely. I had
We're like the last to know.
the last to know. That is very well said. And I was certainly the last to know, and I pushed it as long as I could.
Well, the price tag gets high, whether that's emotionally or with your
And it mostly
consequences.
is
Yeah.
emotionally. That's not always true. For some people, it's the consequences, and the emotions come later.
That's right.
That's true.
For me, it was actually the opposite. The consequences came in sobriety.
So as you
I'll touch on that, hopefully.
Yeah,
So it
yeah.
makes sense to a newcomer.
as you got towards 30, you talked about it getting a little crazy and more problems starting to happen. What were some of the things, and maybe one of the things that you really remember distinctly happening that kind of made you realize, I might be going down a bad path here.
Well, I'll tell a story about I had this job at a bar for years, and every Friday and Saturday night I bartended there. It was called Louis, and it was this cool, really cool like jazz nightclub, and my
remember
entire
Louis.
identity was wrapped up in this place, and everybody would come in there to see me. The party came to me, and that was at the end of my, the end of my 20s. I think I was around 27 or 8 when I got fired from there. But so for years I worked there and made all my money on the weekends. And eventually these people that owned the place, who loved me like a daughter, that's dramatic, but they loved me a lot. had to fire me, you know. And I remember when they fired me, Nancy, the wife of the owner, was crying, you know, as people would do, because it was heartbreaking for her to have to do that. And they told me they were firing me for my drinking, and it just went right over my head. I mean, I barely heard that. I went straight to victimization. I could not believe it. And they said, you know, this is what's happening. The cocktail waitresses are afraid of you. We have guests complaining. They want their money back because the cocktail waitress is such a bitch. Or I'm sorry, the bartender's such a bitch. And so they fired me, and they said to me, we really hope that you get help with your drinking. And on my way out of that meeting, all the bar stools were on the bar, you know, and I just knocked them all off in this like dramatic scene.
Exit.
And as I was walking out, the guy that I always bartended with, he was there. He was in on this. Well, it was really like an intervention when I think about it. And he said, Steph, where are you going? And I just turned around and said, heaven, I hope. You know, and that was like what I like to do. Like, let them think I'm going to kill myself, you know, let it ruin their night.
That's so good.
And how old were you?
I was 27 or 8, maybe 28. And then, so I'm fired from this place where I bartended for years, which was extreme humiliation for me. And up to that point, it was the most humiliating thing that ever happened to me in my entire life. And then to make matters worse, I would go in there and I would get drunk and I would start fights. I punched that guy that I bartended with. I punched him in the face in a blackout. I did all kinds of things I'm ashamed of in that bar. And eventually these people who cried to have to fire me had to ban me. So I got banned from this place. That is humiliating. So that was when I started questioning the way I drank. And then and at that time, when I got fired, the first place I went was my mom's house. And I ran in the door, and I'm hysterically crying, and I tell her what Louie and Nancy did, and I open the bar. My parents had this, like, pull-out bar. And I pour, like, a triple of whiskey, and I just slammed it back. And my mom is looking at me like, holy shit sticks, this girl can put them back. You know what I mean? Alarmed. And I remember that the feeling from despair to relief and hope was instant. And that was when I did the math that alcohol had the ability to just change my perception like that. And once I did that math, from that point on, I was drinking in a way that scared me.
Yeah.
And I didn't last much longer before my first AA meeting.
And that's a good kind of intro or
Segue.
You know, segue to the next thing, which is the what happened part. And I know, I'll just say this, if you wouldn't mind talking, because you did mention having multiple stats, maybe talking about what happened, you know, that first AA meeting and your first attempt, and then kind of in the end, what happened to get you to where this sobriety you have now.
So what happened was, I just shared that story, which is near the very end, or the first very end of a couple very ends. But my parents had an intervention. They came and got me from the beach, which was where I went to live after I graduated college. I went back there. And I was just drinking around the clock, you know? And so word got out to my family, and my mom was instructed to come kind of get me because of the way I was living there, and people were scared of what they would see. I would just emerge from this townhouse and crazy outfits and just drive my car around drunk. And really, like, the real truth, as embarrassing as it is that most of the time I just felt like I was in a music video, and that was the fun for me, just being so drunk that I was just the star of my own video, you know? And then my parents came and got me. They brought me home, and they had this intervention, and, you know, just to save time, the next morning my mom woke me up in our shed in the backyard, and the way she looked at me really scared me. So that night I went to my first AA meeting, and, you know, that was my first sobriety date. And what got me there was that they brought to this intervention, they brought the name of a meeting, which was Kensington Young People. And they were ready, you know, for this. They were prepared. And so that next night I went to that meeting. And that was my first sobriety date.
What was it like going to your first meeting?
I'll tell you, it was terrifying initially. I walked in with my mom, who was like 80 something at the time, and we definitely stood out. It was a young people's meeting. I didn't know what it meant. It was listed in the Where and When with a YP. So I said, "What does YP mean?" And the leader of the meeting was Mike Q, and he said, "It means young people." And I said, "I'm 31. Am I too old?" And he was like, "No, you're fine. Sit down." And I felt so I was coming off of so much drinking. It was my first shower in like 2 weeks and so I was shaking and just buzzing. But the thing that happened that was so cool was that somebody shared and I identified. And the power of identification that is the gold in Alcoholics Anonymous happened to me at my first AA meeting. And this person was sharing about his violence. He was sharing about almost getting in a knife fight at work. And I related to the way he described his rage, and I could tell immediately that in that room among those people, he was safe to say that. And I had no idea that such a place existed. I mean, I had lived already up to this point several years with so much shame, like a thick, heavy, bucket of shameful things that included violence and rage that as a woman, I definitely, was not going to talk about, you know? I mean, there was a lot of people that saw it and knew about it, but not in a new room of people. And that really got my attention. And it's interesting because he wasn't talking about his drinking, but he was. Yeah. Because that's that conduct that I had such a tough time with, dealing with both before sobriety and in sobriety was an aspect of why I drank, if not the biggest one, which was the tremendous amount of fear that I lived in that caused that kind of rage,
He was talking about alcoholism.
Yeah, alcoholism.
Not his drinking.
Well, that's right.
Yeah. That's the relation. That's the identification.
That's exactly right. And that's an important point because you don't know that that's what's happening, but you feel it. It's just something you feel. When you identify, it's almost like, especially if it's the first time ever, like it was for me in that way, the comfort and the hope that it brings gets your attention.
It's like when I heard the doctor's opinion, the restless, irritable, and discontent part.
Yeah, hearing those words.
No one had to explain that to me. Like, it was like someone had just turned a light on in a dark room. I got it. Because I would go to AA meetings and people seemed happy, and I assumed they weren't drinking, but I wasn't happy not drinking.
Right.
So I didn't, you think that whatever's wrong with these people is not wrong with me. There's something else wrong with me. Until you hear something like that, or you read something in the book that and that was it for me. I was sold. I didn't have to read another thing. From that moment on, I was sold on Alcoholics Anonymous. I got it. No one had to explain it.
Because you identified with those words.
I identified with it. Sober, it described the condition that I lived in with every sober breath I took was restlessness, irritability, discontent. And no one had ever explained that to me. They just said, stop drinking. You drink too much. Don't drink. Which is insane.
And it doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't make any sense.
Those words had the same. The doctor's opinion, as a matter of fact, was powerful for me. Once I was open to it, and somebody read it to me and helped me understand it and helped me to identify to it, that is a very, very powerful experience. But then I didn't stay sober.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking. I was thinking, God, if we had more time, we could just talk about everything that happened between then and the sobriety date you have now. But we don't. Let's just say that,
a lot happened.
A lot happened, and then
you guys have been part of all of it.
Yeah. Well,
my sobriety. Are we moving on from the 3 Ws?
No, we're going to move on to what happened right when you got sober. This last time, your sobriety date.
What it's like now, part?
This is kind of wrapping up what happened, and then you can roll into what you're like now.
So I tried to beat the game alone, as Dr. Bob puts it. And, really I was running away from a lot of pain and not getting my way, and Alcoholics Anonymous is what it was. I had no idea how real the idea of a higher power was. All the years that people would say to me, he's your higher power. It just felt like nagging. Like it was just another nag, you know? So all these things happened. I drank again, you know. I did not lean into the solution. I leaned out. And it got really dark really fast. You know, I was taken in an ambulance to the hospital with alcohol poisoning. I was put in a psych ward where Chris picked me up because I told under the guise that I would go to an AA meeting that night, which I did not. And he was very upset about that, you know. I just needed a ride. And we were very, very, very close friends, and he wanted to help, you know, like many people did, and I just couldn't foresee going back. And so I waffled with it. I would go every once in a while. I'd try to go to a meeting, and my life just got darker and darker and darker. The circumstances were not nearly as, you know, flagrant as they were the first time. I didn't have 3 DWIs. I didn't, you know, but the darkness that I was living in, just the way I lived, not able to leave the house, not able to work, not able to even interview for a job. It was dark times. I mean, being in a psych ward, that was super dark. I mean, I was taken out of my home against my will. I didn't even know that was like allowed, you know? They just knocked on the door and just plucked me right out from, I was watching The Hills.
I just want to know I had nothing to do with that.
You didn't? You're saying it like maybe you did.
I definitely
Did you
did.
call?
Oh, okay, I believe you.
Oh, I didn't call.
All right.
Did you call the
No, it was
police?
Courtney.
It's
Did you snitch?
Snitch, dude.
You snitch?
I got snitched on.
I'm a lot of things. Snitch is not one of them.
Not
I'll
one
tell
of
you that
them.
right
That's
now.
why I thought, yeah.
I'll tell you that right now.
But one night I just went to an AA meeting. Somebody used my ego to get me there that, you know, this man's going to be in town and he misses you. So I went, and with a lot of help, and I mean a lot of help from you, from Chris. I mean, so much help. I got a sobriety date. And here I am.
It always takes a village
I mean,
For all of us.
for all of us.
Yeah. I could say the same thing. Chris and I could say the same thing about you. You have helped me in ways that I never knew I needed help in, you know, and I think the relationships we have here, we love to talk about them, have been
it's the best part.
just the center of
Actually, I remember going to lunch with Chris before I got sober this time, which hopefully will be the last time. And he simply said, you know, there's an expiration date on how you're living. And I knew he was right. I knew he was right. You know, I could feel it. You know, you can feel the demons knocking at your door every day, every single day. I mean, when they say alcohol ruins your drinking, or I mean, Alcoholics Anonymous ruins your drinking, it is so much more profound than that. You know, that's why when I hear people say in meetings, and you hear it a lot, they say things like, I don't have another getting sober in me. But I can testify, and I can testify, that you have absolutely no way to predict what you'll do. You can't do it. It can't be done. Predicting, not possible.
yeah.
The other side to that expiration date on how you're living doesn't always mean that you'll make it back to AA.
That's right.
I mean, how many funerals have you been to?
Just in the past
Just
year.
in the past year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in a lot of ways, we're very lucky.
I mean, I didn't feel lucky. I felt more than cursed. And now, and it took a long time to feel grateful, let's say,
Grateful.
and lucky, because we always talk about it. Why does one person get it and another person doesn't, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But I would venture to say, if someone made me come up with a reason, it is because of the love and sacrifice of time, and often, you know, the sacrifice of I was rough when I was new this time. Mean, not always mean, but just tough to be around, you know? So much anger and resentment and negativity and like almost like paranoia. And you guys always had a welcoming place for me every day.
Yeah.
Every day, Chris's house. Every day.
AA is a very welcoming place. With that, let's move on for a couple minutes. If you could just talk about what it's like now. You know, we're going to dive into a topic here, but just tell us a little bit about how life is now.
say this. My life now has a lot of challenges, you know. I don't mean to lead with challenges, but that's the biggest piece. You know, I have a lot of responsibility that I did not anticipate. And if I was not sober, not just sober, but if I hadn't been given a way, a design for living, the book calls it, that truly works in rough going, I couldn't live and handle the things I have to handle for one day. I could not pull off one day of it. So,
1 minute.
1 minute. So I have been afforded the ability to have responsibilities that mean a lot to some people, you know, and I don't mean to like speak in code, but I take care of my mom, and she's 93, and it is brutally difficult sometimes. I mean, brutally difficult.
On a good day.
On a good day. I mean, just to come here, you know, was like,
Yeah.
I just, in the interest of 2 minutes, I'll just say I'm very grateful for it.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know what I was going to be called to do. And holy shit sticks, if I wasn't sober, I couldn't do it. And you know what? It's definitely not what I envisioned, you know, or what you dream of, let's say. But I wouldn't change it. And I really wouldn't change it, and that's the truth. And I'm free. The best part is I'm free. I'm not in paranoid delusion. I don't walk into every room and think people hate me or are talking about me. I don't worry every morning about how I'm going to make people like me or think I'm cool or pretty. I mean, that's the truth. If I could live the way I really wanted to, I would just, before I had this solution, I would just go around to everybody and say, do you think I'm pretty? Do you think I'm cool? How cool? Like, you know, like so shallow, you know, so shallow, and this need for approval that's abnormal. It's an abnormal need for approval. The self-centeredness we live with as alcoholics untreated is an abnormal need for approval and adoration that is nothing short of insane.
And it was never enough.
Never enough.
It was, the need is limitless.
And that's where we do all
Insatiable.
the damage. Because when people can't meet our needs, what do? We go after them.
Mm-hmm.
That's real sweet. Real sweet. So my life today is very good. I'm a good soldier out here for God.
And with that,
I think so.
I think we're going to move on to our topic, and our topic actually goes along with being a good soldier, I think, for God, which I like that line. The topic this week, we'll try to touch on this for about 10 minutes, is why do we need God to stay sober? And I think we try to tailor these topics to our guest, and you have been somebody who I've watched with everything with your mom and many other things that have happened in your life, where as somebody who has turned to God, somebody who's turned to prayer, somebody who has turned to a higher power in their life. And I think a lot of people, if they're new, and maybe you're new and you're listening to this and you're wondering, why do I need God? What does God have to do with all this? You know, tell me how that's going to fix my problem with my driver's license, or my problem with where I'm living, or my problem with my job, or how is God going to fix any of this stuff?
Well, God's not going to fix it, you know. But what my experience is that God will make it possible for you to get through it with good composure, with good conduct, let's call it. You know, that's what it is for me. I mean, I'm not religious, you know, at all. So please don't confuse it with a religious deity. You know, I say soldier for God kind of jokingly. I'm not, but
we know. Yeah,
But like, I had no choice because I was going through the book with my sponsor, and she was taking me through the steps, and I would stumble, just like it says people like me will. And when it says that, you know, tell a man that he can get well despite anyone, you know, if he trusts God. That's part of what he has to do. He being gender neutral in this case. Is that okay to say?
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good.
And so I would just think there's no way it won't work. I will never be able to do that. It's impossible because it's not real, you know. And I was it was galvanized in me that it wasn't real. It was like just nice, like sure, but that's not. The book's talking about it being a design for living, and it tells us right away that it's a spiritual program. And they say we're going to talk about God. We're going to talk about God a lot, and
Which people struggle with, including myself.
yeah, me and myself. I struggle with it every day still, in the sense that if I overthink it, I don't believe it right now. I just learned a way through a lot of help to not overthink it and to look at what had happened in my life in hindsight over years. You know, in the beginning it was weeks and months what had happened because I took the actions that were directed. And that was not Stephanie, believe in God and believe that a higher power, which is what I'm talking about, a higher power I call God, believe that a higher power can restore you to some kind of sanity. You know, that's what I was asked to do. And the first direction I got was to pray, which, just like most people, seems easy enough until you go to do it, and it just seems so dumb, you know? Because it just doesn't seem like it's got any real weight, you know? Not like what I use to fix me, which is people. I want a person to save me from how I feel, something tangible that can, you know, I can touch and that can tell me things and stroke my ego and build me up and give me praise and money and all that, you know? But I just started doing it. I just started saying the prayers. And my first prayer was, thanks for keeping me sober today, you piece of shit. That was my first prayer. But my sponsor laughed. She said, it's a prayer. And the only reason that I developed a spiritual life is because I had nothing else. I didn't have anything on the outside I could hide behind. If I did, I would have. And I tried to hide behind whatever I could in the beginning. And most of the people that I was close to, I mean, for me, what does that look like? It's a boyfriend. That's it. As a woman that likes boys, it's a boyfriend. So I could not, I mean, I was getting rejected at a level that was, I mean, people that would have never rejected me were like, I don't think it's a good idea. Like everywhere I turned, it was just like I was shut down because I was a mess. And fortunately, I was such a mess that even the people that didn't typically care about that were not going to mess with it, you know? And that was a gift because I would have hid behind anything and I couldn't. So the only thing I had was to read and seek and listen to my sponsor and find something that I could rely on to save me from how I felt. And it just, eventually it started to work after, you know, a while.
You know what you used to say that and I loved it, and I still love it, is that no one's coming to save you.
Yeah. That was what
No
was
one.
a big surrender. That was John's sponsor that said that to me. He said, no one's
that
coming
Jerry?
to, He said, no one's coming to bail you out. And I'll never
But that's
forget
true
it.
for
It
all
is,
of us.
for everyone, whether you have your romantic, you know, ducks in a row or whatever, it's still true.
It's still true. And I had a violent relationship with the idea of God. I mean, I remember
definitely
in
did.
sobriety, I was dating this girl. She was like, one morning, she was like, let's pray. And she got down on her knees. And I couldn't will my body to get on my knees.
And pray with her.
And I realized, and pray with her. And I realized at that moment that something was wrong. And I was 4 years sober. I mean, I was sober. I'd done the steps, middle of the night step. And I realized that what it is that I don't want to kneel before anyone. The idea of being beholden to a set of ideals or principles.
Dogma, you used to say.
Dogma was
That's right. He did used to say
it was
the idea that you're not
physically-
God.
it was physically unimaginable to me. I couldn't do it, you know, and I had to reassess that relationship, and it's still happening to some extent.
Me too.
I mean, I can get on my knees, no problem, because I think, you know, being in a place of being teachable and submitting myself to something other than me is a necessity for a guy like me, because I will take my will back and destroy everything.
It is a necessity.
It's a necessity.
I think a simple way that and something I love about A is in the second step, it says, and this is, what our literature says, is that if you just have the willingness to believe that there's something out there, because I came in like you all with this idea that if you believed in God, you were weak, and I wasn't going to go for that. But I was in a position where I was hopeless, where I was willing to believe that there was something out there. And that was all I needed to get started. The word God didn't need to be in my vocabulary.
And it's an irrelevant word.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
irrelevant.
It's just the term we
I'll be
use
honest,
here.
When John shared the agenda with me and I saw the topic, I was like,
Yeah.
It's a good one.
why do we need God to teach? I mean, do we?
It's not,
but you know what? If you look at it, what
But I'm
you're
looking at
what
the
you're
na- I'm
really
looking at the
needing
word.
is turning inward.
Yeah.
You're just looking at something other than yourself. It's like
that's it.
But people get caught up on that word.
Well, you guys talked about it, and what you said is this, and you talked about turning to a person or a girl, a boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it is. I think what we're really trying to say is, why do we need God? Well, because everything that I use in my life to try and make it better has failed me, and everything I've used is human in nature.
But not just failed
money,
you.
sex, pride, ego, all those things.
But and also, it's not just that it's failed you; it's that it's look at the collateral damage of those attempts. There's shrapnel everywhere. There's broken hearts. There's destruction. There's usually, irreparable relationships. I mean, that's what the book says. It talks about, I don't know what exactly, but you guys might, where it talks about someone can have cancer and all are sorry for him. Not so with the alcoholic. We just destroy lives just by our sheer demand that you fix us.
Exactly.
And the counterpoint to that is that you don't have to spend very long in AA at all before the power that is in these rooms and that it has to transform people's lives is indisputable.
It's indisputable.
You cannot dispute it. It's.
I mean, look at my experience.
You'd have
in my
to be
first
totally
meeting.
in denial to not see it, and then and that again is proof positive to me that whether you call it God or not, I don't know, you know what I mean. That's up to you, but that to me is I can't argue with that.
You can't, and it's really just like the willingness to pray, the willingness to not take an action, not try to fix something, and say the prayers or have those. We call them prayers, but to just be quiet and go inward and just, let that happen to you. It almost just, you don't even have, it's not hard. What makes it hard is our minds we just can't, it's like Chris just described exactly. Submitting yourself to something else and all of the stigma that's associated with it, which is
ego.
Religion too. Like you're just thinking about those weird ass
You're fine.
religious people,
You're fine.
those weird ass religious people
You're fine.
that are always portrayed as super crazy in movies and everything else. Like it's just, almost like you can't separate that.
Or maybe you were raised in a religion and you had a bad experience with it, or you felt like you were going to hell because of the way you were living, All that being said, we're going to move on. We could talk about that for an hour.
We could.
Let's move to a couple
We
fun
sure
things
could.
here. Let's get into the newcomer tip of the week.
Ooh.
All right, Gabe, there we go. How we doing, Gabe? That was better. Last week, Gabe could only seem to get like one finger on it. It would just be like, beep, beep. Yeah, there you go. There
So
you
good.
go.
Yeah.
That is
You got
so
it.
professional.
You're really crushing it over there on those pads, Gabe.
It's got one job.
2 tonight. Apparently, the camera has been
Camera's acting up.
acting,
Sorry.
giving us.
Funny. That was fun though.
It's done.
The Scott idea doesn't have to be a downer, everyone. Just,
Yeah.
it's fun.
So the newcomer tip of the week is and this is AA is more than just going to meetings. I think this is good because when I was new,
Thank God.
whether I was
know.
coming out of treatment or not, I thought that in AA was 8 to 9 p.m. or AA was whatever the meeting time was. And that was what I did. I went to that meeting and I left and I just, twiddled my thumbs, just went about my life and then came back the next day to that meeting. So AA, believe it or not, if you're new, is more than just going to a meeting. Right?
Right?
I mean, Yeah, steps, service, fellowship.
The way you conduct yourself in your life.
Which is, I mean, there's no shot in doing that appropriately unless you're taking the steps.
That's right. And
No shot. At least for if you're a real alcoholic.
Yeah.
And there's also no shot of staying sober long term if you don't do that. You know, like if you're really, there's certain things that'll get you.
Yeah.
It'll really get you if you're doing it.
Here's a saying that your sponsor would like, John. Meeting makers make it.
Oh, yeah. He loves that.
What's he call that bit?
Meeting makers make it. Meeting shrapnel.
Meeting
We're gonna
shrapnel.
have them
We're
on
gonna
here.
give
We're
Jerry
gonna
a
have them
shout-out.
on here.
Oh,
Actually,
I just used the word shrapnel not long ago in my
you
interview.
did. We'll have them on in an episode to talk about some shrapnel.
Johnny
but that's
would-
a good one.
Johnny
Meeting
would
makers
yell at
make
us,
it.
right? Steffi would be like, meeting makers make it. Meetings.
Yeah.
And that's it.
I was thinking of a saying that's kind of
Trick suit in your
positive.
trick suit.
What was the one? What was the one where
Not that you would know what that is.
I don't.
what's the one that people
I
say?
never dressed
It's not
slutty.
about what happens between 8 and 9. It's what happens between 9 and 8.
9 and 8.
It's whatever the meeting time is. It's and it's about what happens all the time, not just between the meeting or outside of the meeting. It's both. But I think that when I was new, particularly, it was hard for me to really think about AA as a way of life. I just I couldn't grasp the concept of the
No,
only
that is
way of
so-
life I knew was partying, like you said, and getting messed up and taking from you, stealing,
Which happened for
lying.
more than an hour a day, let's be honest.
It did. But what I didn't realize is that drinking was just a symptom of my alcoholism.
That's right. It's just
I
a
thought
symptom.
that, okay, I'm going to a meeting every day or a couple times a week, and I've checked that box and I didn't drink. And so I thought
Right.
I thought
That's
that
the
was AA.
prescription.
That was AA.
Yeah.
But it's not.
Man, and all you got to do is just be sober for a little while and you will realize.
Oh, yeah, you'll feel it.
I realized it real quick. I was like, because because you will do things and you cannot blame it on drinking anymore.
That's
And you also have to have an experience. I mean, it's not like you got to be. There's a lot of things that have to be working in tandem. You have to go through the steps, but you have to understand what alcoholism is and isn't. You have to really. There's a lot of work to do to really be able to conceptualize, because all it really is just basically trying to be nice and courteous. It's like not that complicated.
It's like
That's
I
the
used
way
to
of
say.
life.
I used to say I gotta do an awful lot in AA to just be a civilized human being.
That's so true.
I mean, that's the truth for me.
I yelled at somebody the other day in traffic, I think. I'm still.
Oh yeah.
That's usually one of my big gauges for if AA is more than just a meeting for me, is how I'm doing on the roads.
Yeah, how you doing on the road?
I think people recently have been driving a lot slower, and I'm like, I don't think they're really driving slower. That's just where I'm at.
It's true.
You
It
know?
really comes out on
I was
the
like,
roads.
Drivers can't have changed that much in the past couple months. I think my patience has been a little down, And so good gauge for me to see if A is more than just a meeting. And I think we'll move on with that. And I think so the tip of the week is that you're going to have to do some other stuff if you want to be a participating member in A than just going to meetings.
it's alcoholism, not alcoholism.
I'm going to just be writing these down. Gabe, do you know that one?
Give that one to Jerry.
Gabe's he's shaking us. He's so frustrated over there.
Alcoholism.
That's a good one. What was the other one? I got to remember that. All right. I'm going to write that one down. I'm going to remember that. Alcoholism, not alcoholism.
That's right.
All right.
That's
You
why
got to
we're
work
all-
the steps.
That's why we're all in meetings still.
Yeah. You got to work the steps. You got to have a
You gotta
sponsor. You got to do
change.
these things. You got to change. There you go. Let's leave it on that. You got to change. Next up, with that, we're going to talk about, this is going to be fun here. So the sketch of the week, we did this last week. If you don't know, each week we're going to be doing a different type of sketch. It's going to be a lot of fun. And this sketch, what's up?
Is it good? Are we cueing the intro music?
Oh,
Yeah.
there
I
is.
don't have any intro music for it,
What's
dude.
the
No,
other
we didn't.
sample we brought in?
I thought we pulled another sample.
Sure, I didn't think so.
What about the silky smooth?
Yeah,
Let's see.
silky.
Let's see.
Give me
Hit-
some silky smooth.
Okay. All right.
And this
I like
week's
it.
sketch of the week.
So last week we did the top 10. This week we have a completely different sketch. I do want to preface this sketch by saying it may seem a little, I don't even know if the word is triggery or glorifying of drinking it away, but
Come on.
when we get to the end of this, you'll know
Say
it's
it.
not. So
Yeah.
this sketch, we're going to do this every now and then, is called What You Missed.
Well, you missed, Stef.
And I think for us who've been sober a little while, What You Missed is funny because there's a lot of things that have come out since we got sober.
And you hear new people sharing about it, and you're like,
Talk
what?
about it.
Yeah.
You talk about it all the
Like,
time.
say, what?
And you always kind of think, what would it have been like, or what is it like? And so we've got a couple here, and then we're going to ask Stephanie as our guest to maybe come up with one of her own. So the first one we have on What You Missed is White Claw. White Claw. What is White
that?
Claw?
What is White Claw?
I've heard of it a lot.
Gabe.
What is White Claw?
Gabe.
It's
I want a real definition, though. Like, look it up.
You want me to look it up?
Yeah.
I mean, I can do that. But it's more of a low-calorie option for the people who want to be, a little more health-conscious with their drinking.
Low calorie option what?
It's a hard seltzer, so it's like seltzer
Okay.
water that's fermented, I think.
Have
I
you
can
had
look at
White?
an official.
Have you had White Claw? Gabe?
Yes. I was more of a Truly man myself, but
What?
Oh, wait, what?
Truly, it's the same thing.
It's
but
another
another
White
brand,
Claw
yeah.
brand. Okay. All right. So White Claw is like a seltzer, like an alcohol. There was no alcoholic seltzers back.
No, they had Mike's Hard Lemonade back in the day.
And they had like wine. What are those? Like
Wine coolers.
Wine coolers.
It was like a wine. It's basically like a newer wine cooler.
Yeah, except this one isn't like sweet. You know what I mean? Like
Okay.
It is very
That-
straight
it's
up, like
less sugar.
Yeah, it's like
less
a LaCroix.
calorie.
It's like a LaCroix, but you can taste the bits.
But
of
is
alcohol
it? But is
in
it like
for sure.
malt liquor?
I don't know how to make
Is
it.
it like
man.
Mickey's Big Mouth?
I don't know. Listen to us. We're,
But it comes in a
sitting here, we
can.
don't even
Comes in
know
a little
like-
white can.
Comes in a little white.
Looks like a Red
can,
Bull.
White Claw. It was very. I just remember
You
this.
know they sell cans of wine,
But is it the size
Do
of a
they?
Red Bull?
I didn't
It's
know
the size of a Red Bull, right?
like real cutely packaged cans of wine.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
These are all.
Look
this
around,
is all.
man. Look around.
I mean, if you showed
Yeah,
up,
like just-
if you showed up around where I was drinking with a White Claw, I smack the shit out of you. Man. I mean, I'm not even gonna lie. I mean, you can
Or a
go
can
around
of
with
wine.
this thing- or a can of wine. Get the fuck out of here, dude.
Can of red
Hey,
wine.
Gabe, have you ever heard of buzz balls?
No, I can't say I have.
We're gonna get to that. Hold on. So White Claw.
Sorry, I jumped the gun on the.
No,
on the
you're fine.
schedule.
You're fine. You're fine. We missed White Claw.
We missed it.
We missed it. People are out there. If
Gladly.
you're new,
Thank
you're
God I
laughing.
missed it.
We had things like Mad Dog and Thunderbird.
I mean, Boone's Farm is as wild
you know what?
as I'd get.
Boone's Farm would probably be our equivalent of
if
White
you-
Claw.
But if you drank 2 bottles of Boone's Farm, Strawberry
feeling-
Hill,
you're feeling
you
good.
are fucked up.
You're feeling good.
I mean, the next day you're gonna have a terrible sulfate hangover.
My brother had this. It was just here. He just left. He had these white cans of. It was like called caramel latte. What's the really dark beer called again? It's
It's like a stout.
yeah. It was caramel like latte stout.
Just drink vodka.
It's a different world.
Just
now.
drink vodka.
It's a different world now. We are. People
drink
are doing
for
it differently.
effect. We drink for effect.
Yeah.
Here's the deal.
Shots,
In
please.
the end. In
Shots.
the end.
I never even
We don't need
drank
a
beer.
glass.
Yeah.
Just a
In the
bottle.
end, we would have
Shots.
blacked out. I would have blacked out on the White Claw and did the same terrible stuff I did drinking Boone's Farm. Right?
I would have thrown that can at someone's face if I was
It wouldn't
drinking.
have mattered.
Get the
Yeah, Chris went hard. He went hard, real hard.
Who'd have smashed the can on his face? It looks like he smashed a can on his face tonight.
Hold on, man. I had a little dermatology appointment today. I'm
We
glad
all
the camera's
do.
not working. Is
When
the
I-
camera
when I-
working?
Nope, the camera's not working.
Well,
so
Chris
safe.
has. If Chris has some red spots on his forehead, when
Yeah, I mean,
when I
that's
ran,
fine.
when I saw him this morning, he was like, "Look at my head," and I thought, "You fell, man."
I thought like your son
You
headbutted him.
fell. That's what I thought. He thought his son like threw something
Like,
at
or
him.
like headbutted him.
I thought he tripped.
Hey, I'm trying to survive the next 50.
That's right. And
You know what I mean? I will. That's right.
Let's move on
You're gonna have to.
to.
You got prom and stuff coming up.
I know. Dude. I'll be working the rest of my life.
Let's move on to the second what you missed. This one's a little bit different, but I also think is fun, and you hear all about this today. But legal marijuana. Ooh.
Oh, I definitely miss that.
It's crazy.
It's ubiquitous. I mean, I was in Colorado, and I know Colorado. I mean,
Can you tell us what ubiquitous means for those of us?
it's everywhere.
Okay.
I mean, you can't anywhere where there's a lot of people. You just smell ganja 24/7. I mean, you go downtown, go down to
Ganja.
Ganja. I haven't heard that one in a while.
well, we used to
Gabe,
call-
do they still say ganja or no?
Some people do.
God.
I found myself though, ever since I got
I like
sober, I've been
ganja.
saying pot more, which is my
Pot.
mother. What my mother used to say.
Here's your mom.
What about
Yeah,
weed?
I started calling it
Do
pot.
they still call it
Weed.
weed?
Yeah.
But when we were smoking weed, it was that Mexi like brick weed that you had to chip with a screwdriver. I mean,
You had to break out the
I would
stem.
buy pounds of it for $800.
You get the seeds out, the stem.
And you'd have to hammer that thing apart with a jackhammer. You know what I mean? And the stuff they're smoking today is, I mean, that's chronic.
And you can get like whatever you want. Like
Well, exactly. And you just go right over to the store.
Yeah.
It's right
so
there.
weird.
There's one right
That's
next to your
so
office.
weird.
Right here. Yeah. There's one right next to
Oh,
my
I know.
office.
I always see the one next to your office.
Yeah. It's
We missed that. I missed it. I
I
feel
didn't
like I
like
missed
pot.
that. I feel like I missed
Does
that.
nothing for me. I could care less.
I wasn't a big pot guy either by the end. I was too paranoid.
You know,
I mean, I took a plea
amphetamines.
bargain.
I was an amphetamine
I was
girl.
amphetamine and vodka.
Yeah.
You know,
you
those were
go.
my two.
I don't even want your downers.
Yeah, your pot.
No, don't.
You know.
I don't need to hallucinate.
Pontificate.
I don't need to think or hallucinate anything.
No.
I'm trying to get away
Don't
from that.
hallucinate on pot.
Yeah, nobody hallucinates.
Well,
on pot.
no, I'm talking about other things like mushrooms and stuff that are kind of in that same
no.
family,
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the same family.
Now, mushrooms, just real quick, I know I'm off topic.
No, you're
Big
good.
therapy revival
Yeah.
on that. Yeah.
And they're prescribing, get this, for depression and cancer recovery, ecstasy. You heard about this?
Yeah.
I mean,
MDMA.
For
Just
depression.
the raw stuff.
Yeah,
They got the
it
good
works.
stuff too.
It's probably a lot better than what I was buying from my boy
take it from someone who
down the
knows.
street.
Yeah, that probably had some Alka-Seltzer in it and
At
stuff.
the 311 show?
Ooh, yeah,
Just take a few pills. You're definitely not depressed.
No.
better than what Chris was.
Here, this
Pushing.
is sheer
Hey,
euphoria.
98.7% pure MDMA. You know, it wasn't-
Whatever.
What are they doing about the come down for people? Because it's like
That's what I wanna know.
suicidal hell.
What come down? These people are struggling apparently, so
Yeah.
they're already hurting. So now, Stephanie, you've got one real quick. Why
No,
don't
I
we-
don't like mine anymore.
What is it?
I don't wanna
Buzzball?
share.
Fuzz
Come on,
balls?
no buzzballs.
Fuzzballs?
Nope.
What are they?
What are they?
They're
What's a fuzz?
balls. They're
Fuzzball?
everywhere.
What
I
is a
just don't-
buzzball?
Okay. It's in like a round,
Buzzball.
like a almost like a Christmas, ornament.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah, yeah.
Shiny, metallic. And it just says Buzzball.
What's in it?
There's all different flavors.
What's in it? Alcohol?
I don't know. Yeah, liquor.
Liqueur.
We didn't have those back then either. I think what I really
so
think
fun
that
and cute looking. That's it.
marketing today has gotten a lot better.
Packaging.
Packaging, marketing with social media. It's back in the day. It was
Skinny girl margaritas,
never heard of that.
no carbs. I mean,
Skinny
that's like a
girl.
thing.
I heard of skinny girl popcorn.
It's called skinny
Low
pop.
cal.
It's
Well, they
not
do have a
skinny
whole
girl
line.
pop.
No, that's right.
I was like, I actually realized it's probably not skinny girl, but that would be funny if it was skinny girl pop.
Just projecting a little bit.
That's
Oh.
fine.
Well,
No,
that's
that's it.
we're coming down the wire here. We got a couple minutes left,
I
but
was just starting
that
to
is
get,
our
free.
let's
Is there anyone on the Zoom that wants to talk to us?
I don't know if they want to talk to us, but there's some people. I see an Isaac, an Austin, a
let's-
Joyce.
Oh, choice.
Yeah.
let's
Let's patch them in, man.
Oh, jeez.
Patch them in.
do a little
Patch them.
I don't know if
Let's
the
ask them
audio is
what they
going to
missed.
be able to pick
it's
that up.
probably not
on the-
gonna
Why not? We pulled people
on
in
the
last
recording.
week. Yeah.
On the recording, it won't. I don't think so.
Okay, but we don't care about that. Let's patch them in.
Oh, and Isaac just left.
Yeah, he doesn't want to be on. Let's just do this. We'll close this thing out and then we can talk to them.
All right.
Let's just say this. Let's wrap up the
you.
sketch with saying, hey, if you're out there and you're drinking White Claw and smoking legal marijuana, but you're hopeless and you want to join us, there is hope here. And Stephanie used a great word, freedom.
Freedom.
There's freedom here. So
It's true.
we are
good
not a
life.
glum lot.
Nope.
Here in AA. You don't have to live like that anymore. And Stephanie, thank you.
Thank you. This
That was
so
this was
cool.
really great. It
was good.
We could talk. I could talk to you for
It was really,
another
really, this
hour
is
about
cool.
this stuff.
You guys are doing something really fun here.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
And we're gonna wrap up by saying we will be back. We're taking a week off next week, but we'll be back the following week, and from there we're gonna have a straight run of great guests and cool new sketches and fun topics to discuss with you. If you have feedback, we're going to get an email
keep it
address
going.
here. at some
Yeah,
point.
we're trying to get professional.
Not alcohol wasn't.
Not
That wasn't.
alcohol. Wasn't. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Steph.
Thank you.